we never get a proper answer to. But sometimes we're lucky enough to get a satisfying reveal to something we've always been wondering. Whether it be something about a character that was kept a mystery, or the reveal of a character entirely, or just a question you always wanted answered. There was nothing more satisfying than getting that reveal, that explanation. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome back to the Roundtable, I'm Nemo, and today we are counting down the top 10 reveals in cartoons. These are the crazy moments where we finally got an answer to something we were always wondering, or something that was teased as a mystery for a long time. Some of them may act as a plot twist, but these are not plot twists. We already covered that in a separate video. These are more things that you've always wondered or wanted to see happen and they finally did. Whether it answers a question you've always had or just reveals something about a character in general, they're all super interesting and satisfying. They all left us saying, oh, okay. Real quick, I just want to issue a spoiler warning because we touch on some plot-heavy aspects of these shows, so just be careful going in. But without further ado, let's get to these reveals.
Hey, witch! Does it have to be princess hair?
No, just beautiful hair.
Adventure Time has been on for a very long time, and the show has changed quite a lot over that time. Finn without his hat is something we ended up seeing a lot of, and especially his hair. However, when the show was just starting out, that was one of the big mysteries that it had to offer. What was underneath Finn's hat? Because for a very long time, we had never seen Finn without his hat on. There was fan art and speculation, but ultimately we got our answer in the episode To Cut a Woman's Hair. In this episode, the ugly tree witch seeks out Finn and Jake to help her cure her baldness and feel beautiful. They initially decline, but she sits on Jake and uses him as sort of a hostage, so Finn is forced to cut the hair of every princess he can find, trying to make this witch feel pretty. This is a great episode of Adventure Time, it's one of the classics, but unfortunately Finn has a lot of trouble finding princess hair, eventually getting a lock of Princess Bubblegum's hair and giving it to the witch, who actually refuses it, saying that it's just bubblegum. Finn calls her out for being ugly inside and out, and the witch exclaims that she will never feel pretty until she loves herself. Finn ends up feeling bad for her, and in turn offers up his own hair, tearing off his hat and revealing a luscious mane of beautiful golden hair. I remember watching this for the first time and being like, holy cow, that was the coolest thing ever. Not only did we finally get to see what Finn looked like without his hat on, but it showed how much hair Finn really had. And it subverted our expectations. I mean, I kind of expected Finn to be bald underneath. He ended up being bald when he gives all of his hair to the witch, and at that point Finn takes his hat on and off quite freely, but up until that point, what was under Finn's hat was kind of a huge mystery, and it was a pretty great reveal.
My hair! My larynx!
Futurama's had a lot of emotional moments, but this is definitely one of the most emotional. In the 2007 movie Bender's Big Score, Futurama dived into a high-concept time travel story that got pretty dang complicated. And although there was a lot that happened in that movie, there was a big plotline with Leela dating a guy named Lars Fillmore, much to the jealousy of Fry. Lars, who's just a really nice, humble guy, hits it off with Leela and things go great, but it's revealed through this time travel storyline that in the craziest reveal ever, Lars Fillmore is Fry. From the past, from the future. See, there's this whole timeline where a time duplicate of Fry goes back to the past and lives above the pizza shop and has this whole life where he befriends a whale, he's named Lilu, he forms a relationship with this whale, he sends it back into the ocean, he goes through this whole thing of loss before Bender blows a giant hole in his building, frying off all of his hair, coarsing his voice, and turning him into Lars Fillmore, a person he resented for a very long time. This is funny too, because it's right after he accepted that Leela was gonna be with Lars. Once he finds out that he himself is Lars Fillmore, he races to be cryogenically frozen, comes out, and goes through the whole motions of the movie as Lars Fillmore up until that point. It actually gets to the point where they were about to be married before Professor Farnsworth reveals that time duplicates die prematurely, causing Lars to just freak out, break up with Leela, and cancel the wedding. So really nothing long-term changed. Lars ultimately ends up dying in that special, which is kind of a sad and dark ending to the character that ended up being Fry. Still, to introduce a character as an antagonist like this, a mysterious character at that, and let the audience wonder the entire movie who this guy is or where he came from, only to reveal that it is the main character of the entire show, is a pretty ballsy reveal, and a pretty satisfying one at that. It also shows that you should just never mess with time travel at all.
If you mess with time, it tends to mess back.
Avatar has a lot of unanswered questions, okay? Any show with a lore this deep, with so many characters and plot lines and such a complex story, is bound to have a couple loose ends and a couple mysteries that never really got finished up. One mystery for a long time that was never really brought up is the fate of Avatar Roku. We know that Avatar Roku died at some point because Aang was born, but for so long we had no idea how. The theme song would briefly mention that Avatar Roku vanished, but that wasn't specific at all. He would often come to Aang for spiritual advice, but they never really addressed rest how the dude died. It was kind of this unanswered question, and for a while, it almost seems like we'd never know the fate of Avatar Roku. We'd just be assumed that the dude croaked at some point mysteriously. But then we do find out, and it's the darkest thing ever. So Avatar Roku had a past with Fire Lord Sozin, the infamous Fire Lord who started the Great 100-Year War. And in this episode, we get the full detailed story of their lives together. Their childhood friendship, Roku realizing he was the Avatar, their paths eventually diverge at this point as Sozin lives the life of a Fire Lord, and Roku spends his life learning how to be the Avatar. They eventually reconvene, and Sozin, who originally was just a really great guy, is kind of a crazy dictator now. He basically goes to Roku and he's like, isn't it crazy that I'm the Fire Lord and you're like the most powerful being in existence, and we're friends, and we're born at the same time, and are from the same nation? We should dominate the world together. I mean, the dude has a point. It's a pretty crazy coincidence. I don't blame him here. Roku, seeing how clearly power hungry his friend had become, completely shoots down the idea because he's the freaking Avatar. Of course he wouldn't be into that. Before telling him to never bring up anything like that again. And then everything was fine. Just kidding. One day, Roku was out on his dragon, just chilling, and then he saw that the Fire Lord did exactly what he said not to and took over some Earth Kingdom land. Angrily, Roku goes to confront him, at which Sozin tries to play the whole I'm your king card, which, dude, he's the Avatar, he lives on a volcano island, you will not win this. The two end up getting into a fight, and eventually it ends up with Roku sparing Sozin's life, making a decision not that the Avatar would, but that he would, a selfish personal decision, a decision he will later regret. We cut to the future, he's kind of an older Avatar now, and he's chilling on the volcano island, when he realizes how stupid it is to live on a volcano island because volcanoes erupt. Roku quickly attempts to use his Avatar powers to stop the volcano from destroying his entire home, and that's when, in a happy ending, Sozin comes, and he's like, hey bro, let me help. Looks like they patched things up, and the two work together to stop the volcano. And that's when Sozin literally becomes the worst person in existence. He realizes that without Avatar Roku, nothing would stop him from his crazy plan of world domination. So he leaves Roku to die. And then Roku proceeds to die on the volcano island trying to save his home. What a stab in the back, and what a powerful twist to these two characters' arc. It makes it so much more interesting that the last Avatar had a relationship with the person who created this world-altering event, who is basically one of the main antagonists of the series. It's just so interesting. And I pride Avatar in keeping it dark here with this story. They did not sugarcoat it at all. The whole episode focused on how Avatar Roku's personal decision to spare Sozin's life ended up destroying so many others. And ultimately, he's the one to blame. And it's true, he is. It's really dark. Regardless, they could have never touched on how he died or even brought it up at all. It obviously doesn't need to be assumed. The fact that they did a reveal, and they did a reveal this dark, explaining an entire origin story that makes the whole story of Avatar so much worse, is just another reason why Avatar is such an incredible franchise.
Stop the countdown!
I say let the Omnitrix self-destruct and take the universe with it.
There have been a lot of questionable Ben 10 movies over the course of the franchise, a lot of them being live action, but the best Ben 10 movie was the very first made-for-TV movie, Ben 10: Secret of the Omnitrix. This 2007 movie follows Ben on a journey across the galaxy to find the creator of the Omnitrix, and in case you haven't guessed, that's the reveal. The whole thing starts off when Ben accidentally sets off a self-destruction protocol on the Omnitrix, which is a pretty dark way to start the movie. You know, it's just about a 10-year-old kid who has a doomsday device tied to him. It then follows them on their journey trying to reach Azimuth and all the things that stop them along the way, although eventually Ben succeeds and arrives on Azimuth's planet, entering his mountain fortress and finding him in a sealed laboratory. Ben asks him to shut down the Omnitrix, to which Azimuth refuses, causing Ben in a fit of anger to break down the wall and attack him, only to reveal that the Omnitrix's creator, the creator of the most powerful thing in the entire universe, the most powerful weapon the universe has ever seen, is a tiny, old, grumpy gray matter. That's right, the almighty creator of the Omnitrix is about as small as a deck of cards. This is Azimuth's first time in the Ben 10 franchise, and he makes a lot of appearances since then, but this was the first time he was ever revealed. And honestly, it was so perfect. They built up the expectations of the Omnitrix's creator to be this massive god, this powerful almighty alien. In reality, he's just this little smart dude. The movie ends with Ben fixing the Omnitrix, and Azimuth letting him keep it, claiming that he made the Omnitrix as a way to bring peace between planets, and that's sort of what Ben's doing. Also, he doesn't want anything to do with it because it causes a ton of trouble, which, you know, dude, be more responsible for the things you create, but also I understand. Oh, and then Ben gets way big, which is, you know, that's pretty cool. But ultimately, the reveal of the Omnitrix's almighty creator being a tiny grumpy Galvan alien is just absolutely perfect.
Will, you're the best friend I ever had. You gotta quit saying you're sorry. It's not okay. okay?
This is one of my favorite reveals, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do this list in the first place. Wilt, from the beginning of the series, was missing an arm and had a screwed up eye. It wasn't really addressed a lot, it didn't need to be addressed, it was just sort of assumed about his character, and in the back of your head you always wondered, whatever happened to Wilt? Why is he screwed up like that? And in the episode Good Wilt Hunting, we finally got an answer in the form of an origin story for him. See, Wilt was created by a kid named Jordan Michaels, Michael Jordan, get it, ha ha ha, who was pretty bad at basketball, so we created an imaginary friend who really was. And for a while, Jordan and Wilt were this unbeatable basketball duo. However, a jealous boy created his own imaginary friend, and the two faced off in a giant basketball game where Wilt ended up sacrificing his own self to save Jordan, who was almost crushed by Larry. He saved Jordan's life at the expense of his eye and arm, but ultimately lost the game. Jordan was extremely upset about the loss, and Wilt ended up running away and becoming a lost imaginary friend, ultimately finding fosters. It's a really sad origin story, and it's especially sad knowing how nice Wilt is and how kind he is to everybody. He just wanted to help. Luckily, in that same special, the two met up again, Jordan being an adult and a professional basketball player. They got a happy ending. It's just another reason why you should never ever be athletic, because it only ever leads to tragedy, and sometimes a lot of money.
Whatever is inside, we can deal with it together.
Together?
Together.
This is a reveal that did not have to happen. The internet made it happen. Penny was just originally a weird character design. She was this big peanut shell thing with antler ears. It fit right in with Gumball and how weird it was. But soon, as Gumball began to grow a larger and larger fan base, that fan base began to speculate on what was underneath Penny's shell. There was tons of great fan art about it, with tons of people genuinely wanting to know what was underneath there. I personally always thought that she was just a shell, and I didn't think about it too much, but I'm clearly wrong. Because eventually, we finally see Penny come out of her shell in the episode titled The Shell. It opens with Penny getting a crack in her shell, to which her dad freaks out about. In fact, going so far as to saying that Penny is going to move schools. But Gumball gives her a huge speech about how she should be herself, which leads her to shed her shell and reveal who she really is. An incredible shape-shifting being of light. It's really confusing. I have no idea what Penny's supposed to be. She quickly misinterprets what Gumball is saying and thinks that he's calling her ugly, revealing that basically how Penny works is she can turn into what she's feeling. So when her emotions are negative, she turns into that negative thing, so on and so forth, which leads to a lot of chaos, especially when her dad calls her a pig. That didn't end well. Gumball ends up chasing her down and showing her how much he loves her true self with a kiss, super cute and romantic, and from then on out, Penny is officially changed. Her character is always shown in this form. She's officially shed her shell. It's a great metaphor for loving yourself and being your true self. Gumball did it in its perfect Gumball way. I give it credit for making a major change to a character and sticking with it, and I love the idea of a reveal that wasn't really meant to happen until we all asked for it. Hopefully we can use that same logic to get a better ending. I'm just saying.
A great evil has been unleashed.
Alright, well, I haven't seen that much Star, but I guess I'm just gonna talk about Toffee. I mean, I'm sure his character was a big reveal, so...
Welcome back to the Roundtable! I'm Oshrik Vots, and... A story is only as good as its villain. So when it comes to Star versus the forces of evil, there came a point where the story wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. And that all started with the 8th episode of the series in its second segment, Fortune Cookies, where we met the antagonist, Toffee. Now, how is Toffee a reveal? Well, when Toffee hit the scene, the bigger picture of Star really began to unravel. Out of nowhere, we went from this goofy henchman tier antagonist to a villain who clearly had a lot to say. A villain who knew more than any of the main characters present, and thus knew way more than the audience. Imagine, a lizard in a business suit would completely change what a show is. Toffee recontextualized everything we knew about Star, and the more he got involved in the series, the more its tone began to shift, taking this series from a lighter story to a much darker story. If it wasn't for Toffee, we wouldn't even have had the final resolution in the series, which came about from an entirely different villain, but at the end of the day, it all came back to that mysterious man in a suit. What layers and secrets Toffee began to peel back, you may be asking? Well, because of Toffee, we began to dive into the great monster Mumin War, how horribly monsters are treated by humans. If it wasn't for Toffee, we wouldn't have learned about Eclipse's chapter in the Book of Spells, and getting Eclipse's debut after his death.